Fire up and good morning. We'll give people a few moments to join us. We've got another exciting 2024 edition. Our first guest of the year, Anna Charity from G2, and
Hey.
she is going to inform us all things intent as a senior product marketing manager of buyer intent for G2. I can't think of a better person to start the new year off because I am getting a ton of questions right now around intent data, and I can't wait to dig in with Anna. Before we dig into our poll, just to share the format, this conversation is as much of our conversation across the three of us as it is for you. So as audience members, as you're joining in, feel free to chat your questions to Anna and we can promote those up. And, if you have specific questions that we can answer, we're happy to do that. And each week we start off with the poll. This week's poll is around intent data, and LinkedIn is somewhat limited in terms of its capabilities. So it's kind of a simplistic poll around intent. Where are companies finding the most value right now in intent data? And probably not a huge surprise, but net new logo acquisition was the primary use case. What surprised me in this poll was not more people were using this for choice 3, which was the upsell cross-sell use case, mainly because it's just been so challenging last year to get net new logos that I would have thought that people would start that pivot more to the cross-sell upsell. But Meg, what was your reaction when you saw this poll?
Well, I was one of the people that picked choice 4 because there are, great use cases across all of these that I think people really would be selling themselves short if they're not taking advantage of. I understand how it's focused on net new logo because I think still a lot of marketing organizations are primarily tuned to net new logo acquisition. So by default, that would be the use case that would be most common. That said, I think as we're looking at what 2024 is likely to be in terms of the market conditions, I think if we ask the same question in a couple months, it would look different. In particular, reduction of customer acquisition cost, I think will become really important as funding is getting tighter, as companies are scrutinizing budgets and looking for ways to make things more efficient. And I think that upsell and cross-sell, especially for account-based go-to-market models where you don't have an infinite universe of companies who can buy from you, and the easier and more cost-effective sale is going to be to expand in your existing folks. I bet this will change. Maybe we should ask it again in a quarter or two.
I love that. And also I'm thinking, I don't know, I hopefully it's a sign of optimism, but I think in the past we'd probably have a ton of comments of retention, which I know is number one. But if we ask this, this time last year, churn reduction, retention, it's huge right now, but I agree with you, John. I would have expected leaning into that low hanging fruit, the land and expand, but love to see that we're eager to go after the new future customers that are out there.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the retention. That's great. If I could slide in a fifth choice here, I probably should have included that. That's a great call out. Maybe we should take a step back for a second, Anna. You're really close to intent data. You do a lot of positioning. You work with a lot of your clients with intent. How would you even define first party, second party, third party? It's changing quite a bit. And then, we're going to dive deep in intent, but let's just kind of baseline. What is intent data from your perspective?
Yeah, exactly. So I would say starting out, intent data is the actions and engagements that a future customer, a potential buyer, someone that's meeting your ideal customer profile are engaging with throughout their buying journey. So I always like to look at it from the perspective of like a consumer example that we can relate. So for example, if I'm looking for a new couch and I'm searching online and I'm searching best pull-out couches. Maybe that shows that I am an engaging prospect that is looking to buy a couch. But what if I am a customer prospect that is searching CB2 pull-out velvet couch versus Wayfair pull-out couch? That's probably going to show a little more high a higher intent. And that personally, as a marketer, would be the account that I would prioritize, that I would put my limited ad budgets toward. So again, in the most basic sense, it is the interaction and engagement that a buyer is displaying across the buyer journey. So as we know, or likely you've heard this stat, only 5% of buyers are actually in market at any given time. And a lot of customers don't actually engage sales until they've actually made up their mind, because it all goes back to this day and age. We want to do our own research. We want to self-serve. We want to talk to our community, our peers. I think my colleague Amanda Malka was on here last time, and she said the website used to be the front door, and that's no longer the case. So at the end of the day, it's just being able to know who your buyers are and reach your ideal buyers at the right time with the right message. And they want that too, frankly. And at the end of the day, it's usually marketers marketing to marketers. So we kind of avoid those form fills, as long as we can. So as a buyer, I appreciate it when I am met where I am on my journey with information that's relevant. And in terms of first, second, and third party, I have more details I can follow up with there. But for G2, we are considered first party for us because it is our proprietary owned review data, and reviews that come from our 2.5 million reviews from over 90 million annual visitors, and those are all verified, unbiased. So we own those reviews, and you're able to use that data, and that's first party. But again, there's different second party and third party that often will use a crawler, or it comes through a different method, and I can share more on that as well.
One of the things that I think people struggle with is, always wanting to know, well, what are my peers doing and how do I compare? And am I behind? Am I ahead? Like, how do I think about my use of intent? And wondering if you could talk with us a little bit about the maturity curve that you're seeing since you spend time with customers and seeing how they're using your tools. I think you're a great person to answer that question right from the ground up.
Awesome. Yeah. I like to think of it in a couple of different ways, and our team is always trying to come up with different materials to coach different folks on where you are, where you should be. I think taking a look again at that consumer model, getting ahead of it. We know that that's to come, and you don't want to be behind your competitors. So I would say a couple of different things. So I like to think of it in terms of buyer intent data sources. So maybe you have no buyer intent. That is okay. That you're a little behind the curve, but that is common. Maybe you're still doing the spray and pray method. Maybe you are getting a little more advanced and you have some like custom segmentation and audiences, and you're delivering those hyper targeted, all those buzzwords, messaging. But again, if you're not reaching that 95% that's not in market, then you're doing something wrong and you're just wasting your dollars. So in terms of data sources, I like to think of it in terms starting there. And it's really easy to get up and running with G2, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I also like to think of intent in the form of implementing manually versus automating. And I'll start there and I'll take a step back. So there's a couple different ways. So a lot of folks think intent, it's this buzzword, it's similar to AI, it's everywhere right now, and it is incredibly important, but maybe that can sound daunting, maybe how ABM sounded at first. You don't need this intricate ABM strategy. And back to my example at the beginning, whether you're a tiny company and you don't have any type of rev ops, marketing ops, or you're enterprise and you have to go through the red tape or somewhere in between, there's ways to kind of like get up and running based on your goals. So wherever you land, you can start small. So for example, with G2, we capture all of the buying activity that buyers engage with across your G2 profile, your G2 category, sponsored content, if they go to a compare page, which I want to circle back on that retention piece later. But if they're looking at pricing, if they're looking at your deals, if they're scheduling a call, if they're downloading content, all of that is incredibly valuable, kind of like hidden gems that we're capturing. And I know it might sound creepy, but again, it's meeting the buyer where they are, and it is the future that we live in today. So because we're capturing all of that, and then on the back end behind G2, and it's this way with many intent tools, by the way, and we like to say at G2, 1 + 1 = 3. If you are on the latter end of that maturity curve, like there's no, you don't have to pick and choose. Like we love them all. The more intent you have and the more integrations you have set up, the better data you can glean, the better story you can glean, the better you can operationalize it. And then it all comes back around to like acquiring the new customers, but acquiring them at a lower cost. Speed to lead, getting customers up and running more quickly and adopted, which ultimately means higher retaining customers. So I kind of go on my tangent. All of that to say is we're capturing all of those signals and moments behind the scene, and G2 is translating those into like buying stage and activity level. So again, regardless of the platform, download that information, download that account list. We have a recent integration with ZoomInfo suggested contacts. So sales reps can access and see those suggested contacts from ZoomInfo, similar to Cognism. We have several buyer intent integrations. But upon downloading that data, and by the way, cut out the noise, whittle it down to your ideal customer profile. And that can be demographic, firmographic, technographic data is really important. And we're seeing a rise of that, the importance of that data point and incorporating that into scoring methodology. So download it, manually reach out, send out a blast, look at where they are in the funnel or in their buying process. If they're at awareness, maybe send them thought leadership, case study. If they're towards the end of if they've been looking at your pricing page and comparing you to competitors, and they're in the decision stage in G2, and they're a customer of yours, by the way, you might want to jump in and say, "Hey, I'm your CSM. Just wanted to talk through pricing, make sure everything's okay." You know, we have different suggested templates so that it's not this like creepy, saw you looking at this. So that's a way to get up and running quickly. Downloading it. We have a Slack integration. So going back to how G2 uses G2 is we will set it up based on our ICP, which is usually demand gen marketers, sales managers, customer success. We set it up if a top tier customer or prospect is engaging with certain parameters, certain pages, we jump in on that. And so our sales reps are able to be the first. We know that stat. It's like if you wait 5 minutes, I think the deal declines by like 50%. I used to be in sales, like you got to be on it. So that Slack integration is like a pretty quick and dirty integration to get up and running compared to more of our more intricate integrations, like not even intricate, but maybe again requiring that permission. And then so those are some, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my list here. Slack notifications. Yeah. And we have email notifications as well. So let's say you're not using Slack, or even Slack as an integration is too much, get it sent to your email. And then again, I spoke to this at the beginning, and I'm almost done talking here, but on the end of the maturity curve, integrating with more intent data sources, using tools like Sixth Sense, integrating with Zoom Info. We have a Gong integration for sales teams, Sales Loft for sales teams. So automating those triggered cadences based on where they sit in the funnel, based on what that account is. So you can get really intricate and sophisticated and go down kind of like any kind of path and segmentation. So those are kind of the ways I think about it. And we have several resources on like getting up and running and where you should be. But all I'll say is if you're behind, just get started now. If you're on G2, most businesses are, or even if you're, on a different review site platform that may offer intent, but probably not. Sign up for G2, test it out. Again, not a sales pitch, but it's a quick and easy way to get up and running and test it. And if you like it, go on and reach out to the buyers on your team and see what you can do to invest in other integrations and expand that usage.
I love how you're in the workflow of the sales team, whether it's email or Slack, and you're introducing kind of the concept of intent to them almost in real time or near real time when somebody's on, a prospect might be on a certain page. To get that information, I imagine, is pretty critical. Just reflecting on our own intent experiences, and sometimes with intent, it can be challenging to operationalize. And probably, as you went through your maturity curve, maybe people are starting too aggressively, wanting to get all this integration done. Certainly the Slack and emails sound like maybe they're quick wins, but any advice around either quick wins or quick ways to operationalize intent for sales teams to really understand it? Because that has been a common issue with intent, of just digestion of what is it and what does it do?
Yep. I think, yeah, honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head of like drinking our own champagne has been the quickest way. Like when I was in sales at Calendly, we used Calendly to schedule our tools. So it was really easy for us to show our prospects that we see the value in our own tool. And I think our sales reps and our CSMs have gotten really good at telling that story. So I'd say in terms of quick wins for sales, is definitely, setting up any kind of notification, giving them maybe you usually think of like the A/B test when it comes to marketing automation, but using your Groove or Outreach or Sales Loft and setting them up in that with maybe like an A/B test of intent based audience versus maybe if they're a BDR, someone that they would just go after on their own in their book of business. And equip them with the messaging, with the CTA, and kind of test how that goes. I love like the art and science of going through that. And I'll also say I spend a lot of time with our BDRs as well. And they're like, LinkedIn is the new way to sell. Like LinkedIn is where you're going to be getting people. It's not email is dead, chat bots are dead. Like everything has a space. I think we've all kind of come to acknowledge that. And integrated campaigns are where it's at. So using that automation through those sales intelligence tools, absolutely. And just helping reps and the frontline team see the fruit of their labor. And then again, it's like we drink our own champagne. So we have a LinkedIn matched audience integration. So we're able to see where our prospects are engaging across LinkedIn and G2. And then, of course, we're able to see how folks go from their website to G2 or to G2 to their website. So luckily, we're able to capture that. And I am getting sick of hearing myself say this, but we always say this: no one goes to G2 for fun. So we're the number one marketplace. The data does not lie. So we are capturing those signals, and it's it's a good place to start, just being honestly candid.
Yeah, I think all of us understand sort of there's a lot of power in the role that G2 has in the market, which is very cool. And an advantage for the people who tap into it, right?
Yeah.
It's so thinking about the kind of idea of quick wins and what kind of impact you see this having. How would you recommend that either marketers or revenue or sales ops folks think about showing that in terms of their reporting? Because often it's like, oh, well, we just deployed this new tool and we won the investment, but now we've got to show the ROI. What are some ways you've seen marketers or others be successful with showing that?
Yeah. So I'll kind of start from like a quick generalized example, just because it's close to home and I'm just going through this with like the end of our fiscal quarter coming up. And it's so software is eating the world. G2 alone, I think we have over like 200 tools that we use. I learned that during onboarding. I was like, that is wild. One of them is a tool that captures, it's like a visible type tool that will capture the different data points and helps us with lead attribution. So that's, of course, a more sophisticated model. And we are set up to do that. We do have the team. So this won't apply to everyone. But I find the best way is to see whatever, get as much tracking as you can. So a lot of times I'll say, if I don't have the most tracking, I'll go to my team and my marketing operations team, and I'll be like, hey, I'm trying to figure out like how, I know not everyone clicked the lead form. I know, again, marketers marketing to marketers. So, but I know that this wasn't a fail. I know I got more than 5 MQLs. What can you tell me? And so there's different ways, again, kind of outside my realm, but through like Marketo or Visible to kind of figure out what that engagement looks like. So from a broad perspective, just like getting really creative and scrappy with like how you can get to that data and like back into what, like, you're not making it up, but like if you got 100 leads, okay, what is the story behind the scenes? And from like an intent perspective, quick and dirty, make sure you're set up with UTM tracking. So our director of marketing ops, the reference that I spoke to earlier, worked on an ebook that basically is all about proving ROI with intent and not just with G2. And that's one thing that she strongly recommends is setting up UTM parameters based on your campaign. G2, I think it was a test. I believe we just launched it. We will auto start applying those for customers, so it's easier for tracking. And then also, I mean, if you really want to get into the, there's like the leading and lagging indicators, but of course, looking at, hey, I had 100 people open this email and only 6 clicked through, but then I have all these sales calls, like what's going on? So kind of trying to figure that out. And that's probably not fun for a lot of people, sending people down a rabbit hole of homework. But that's the best way I think to do it. And then again, just pulling different like quantitative and qualitative reporting. So we use Gong all the time. I love their new AI feature. You can literally say, did this call talk about our new technographic data feature? So there's things like that you can just kind of glean and say, oh, we also have like our sales integration set up with Gong. So we have it all going on, but we can say, X amount of X amount of calls that referenced this ROI tracker or this product yielded X dollars in revenue. And then I can go back to my team and be like, look at this, everyone. Like, you will make more money if you use these phrases. So kind of like a Frankenstein art and science of it. But in terms of intent, yeah, cross-referencing the engagement, A/B testing against the your standard variable ICP, and there's a chance that there might be like some overlap. But G2 actually runs data match assessments where you could say, hey, here is my closed won customer list. How many of those folks were on G2? Or better yet, here's my closed lost customer list. How many of those were on G2 that I missed and could have gotten after had I seen that they were comparing me? So there's a lot of different strategies that you can develop with this, but it's the attribution game, never ending.
Yeah, and we consult in this area, so full disclosure, as I kind of share and add to what you just shared there,
Yeah.
we have found a way to identify intent qualified either leads or accounts and track that through the system, so you can actually attribute both the volume and the velocity of those deals going through the funnel. But it really relies on the definitions and understanding both from sales and marketing and your technology stack. You need a demand base or a sixth sense. You can augment it with G2 as well, but you need something that can kind of pop up the qualified account in an ideal sense. But I loved how you ended that, Anna, about the kind of things things I wouldn't have thought about the data matching. I guess my last question would be, what other common issues do you see clients just overlooking, or gosh, if you had only done this or if you had only done that, that maybe they just don't have the visibility like you have?
Honestly, I think the biggest miss from my perspective is bringing us home to that pull, the customer acquisition cost of not necessarily leveraging intent in their paid efforts as much as they should, and more so relying on it, maybe still top middle of the funnel with marketing automation, but really taking a look and saying, we are not putting dollars towards something that is not going to yield revenue. Like very much the ABM approach. Like, we are going to take a step back. If they do not meet X, Y, and Z criteria, we're not going to spend a dime on them. So I'd say that is a big miss, in my opinion. And then also, you kind of touched on this earlier, John, but just having that analysis paralysis, not doing the crawl, walk, run approach, like just start small. And I can be this way in my own projects of like eating the frog, like just go for it. It's not as hard as you think. You just poke around. Every G2 customer has support from our reps. And so, again, there's other places to start, but if you haven't started, G2 is a good place. I'll say other misses is not creating that like integrated strategy alongside sales. So, obviously, we know sales and marketing never been more aligned, but coming up with that integrated scoring approach and providing sales with the accompanying outreach that supports the marketing nurtures and campaigns that are going out. So I'd say those are kind of the three big ones. But yeah, basically don't let analysis paralysis kill you.
Got it. Well, I think that about does it. Meg, any last questions on your side?
Not for me. I'm sure we could continue this conversation, and I hope we will in another session. There's so much to talk about here and so many great opportunities for companies to take advantage of this powerful resource and tool. So thank you very, very much for being our inaugural 2024 guest.
I'm honored. Thank you so much. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Anna. Thank you for investing your time. And next Friday, if CAC, cost of acquisition, benchmarks, or anything related to the financial side of marketing is of interest, we have Matt Harney from Cloud Sources who will be joining us, and his information is incredible. I'm really not quite as excited as I was this week because there's a lot here with G2 and intent, but we're leading the new year off on the right foot here between Anna and Matt's going to be a 1-2 punch. So really excited for that. So with that, we'll conclude and we'll see you next Friday at the same time.
Happy Friday.
Bye.